So here's another question. What does Airframe Ultra's map design process look like? And what makes a good Airframe map compared to a bad one? That's a really good question.
Yeah, that is a very good question.
Hey racers, welcome to a new series I'm starting. I'm going to be analyzing every single one of Airframe Ultra's tracks, looking at what it does right, what it does wrong, and what it can very easily improve on. Starting today with Storm Drain, I think this is one of the best design maps in the game, and I want to start it on a lighter note. This first part of the race, getting straight into it, probably one of the worst spots, ironically enough, but it's a lot of easy fixes. Driving along here the main way, the optimal line is going around here so that you don't bump on that. This is just a very great, very easy introduction. I think the fact that you have all of the arrows, the fact that you can very clearly see the walls, this is a very good way of introducing racers to Airframe and to its mechanics. You have a lot of time to be able to just drive along this, but good players can also see these optimal little spots to maintain their acceleration. I think the problem area is up here, and how the game utilizes its general sense of verticality. All of this is in bounds, making it feel somewhat intentional, right? However, back in Beta 1, when I first started playing, I saw this box, thought it was a ramp, got up here. That's how it all started. Nowadays, players would much rather take this in order to get a better line going up here, but an easy way to keep this little shortcut but make it a lot better. I'm going to put some drone footage over here. You're going to remove this beam, move it over here, that way you can't boost up from there, and instead you can take this ramp thing that I mentioned before. When you're driving along this, that upper spot is no longer going to be a ramp. You have to put in some actual effort to wall riding. And then these two tunnels here. These, this is probably going to be the biggest change that I make to the entire map. These point downward, and you can go through them. Skipping the whole going up, the main problem, and this is going to be a big part of a lot of Airframe design, any slope becomes a ramp, no matter how small. And flipping these tunnels and making them point downward removes that ramp while keeping the shortcut, making it a lot less beneficial unless you're using extra boost in order to try to get up to that top part, which without it being a ramp up there becomes a lot weaker. Leading into this next section, you have this tunnel here. This section is a really good way of introducing obstacles, because this is going to stop you, this is going to stop you, these back here are going to stop you, and this ramp, if you're hitting it at a bad spot, will send you into that box. Blasting through this section requires a lot of skill if you're not taking the skip, and learning how to get through this is a really consistent way of getting ahead early on in Storm Drain, and I think that this is one of the best design spots in the map. The fact that you can skip it as of now, kind of scummy. I think if they implemented the other changes, skipping this would be worth more consideration on something bulkier like Cruiser if you're not confident in getting through, especially with the water risen up. This section, it's a little weak, but I like it. If you don't know how to brake, getting up here can be kind of difficult. However, if you pay attention to some of the tech, you can kick off of this, get over very easily. Overall, this is just a very wide, straightaway open section. You also have some weapon spawns here. I think if they made the weapon spawns a little earlier, maybe put something more valuable on this spot to encourage players to go out of their way to grab it, it could make this open section a little more interactive, because a lot of players are going to be getting melee, they're going to be getting guns, and they're going to be wanting to attack first place. You have this big ramp up here, not very useful, however it does skip some of these spots. The fact that these slopes are so harsh, I like this. I think that this should be implemented along the larger tunnels, but it's spitting you out here. Now half of these just don't have collision, and I think that that is probably just a mistake. but here, you have a lot of different branching paths. You have this route up here that you can only get to by taking this line really tight. This is generally the most optimal way. You can go back over here. You can get up to this without needing to brake or use a boost or anything. And then this right side path tends to be worse just because not only are you dealing with that, you got this big ball. Move the ball over to here, punish the tighter route, make players a little more cautious. Up here is another box that just doesn't have collision. A lot of people don't go for this boost pack, however these two boost packs are problematic, I think, because you have the finish line right there. If you're on Vector, you're getting to here and you have like one boost left, you're picking up this pack and you're winning every single time. Removing these two packs, moving one to be up there, and keeping this one that's over here. Hell, maybe make the middle pack like here. Make players have to go out of their way to get boost packs. That's one of like the core parts of this game that makes Vector so strong, is the fact that all of your boosts are along the main path. If Vector had to get up here, spend a boost to go up, it'd be a lot more interesting. And the other part with this jump, I can understand wanting a boost with the jump, but I'm only going 120 here, right? 130. Jump is fine. You don't need a boost for the jump at all. You have this path, you have that path, you have the path up there, and you have the path on the right. Generally, you do not need to use a boost on this section unless you're going really slow. And if you're going really slow, you're not picking up the boosts on this section because first place already grabbed all three. And with Vector, that's 6 boosts. If the quick fight isn't here, Vector's just going to take all 6 of these boosts and then blast to the finish line anyway. This section, not a lot to say about it. It's just a fine ending. You can get up to here a little more consistently than what I was doing. If the quick fight isn't there, this is a really easy way to clear this gap with a little bit of higher speed. This quick fight, very fun. I like this. It's introducing the half pipes, which is something Vector can't do now, which is kind of stupid, but you know, Video Cult, they make their choices, and that's interesting, and it keeps the game fresh and exciting. This set of ramps here and here, kind of odd. I have gotten a couple kills boosting off of these. It's really interesting. I think generally the half pipes provide good defensive measures for a relatively small arena. If you're getting shot at, you can very easily do this and get to a different spot on the track. You can do this, get over here. It makes it a little more unpredictable. My only complaint is the fact that going up here lets you get onto this spot, and it can be a little hard to snipe players that are up here if they have something like a revolver or a Kalashnikov or a minigun. It's very easy for them to sit up here and hide because of the way that this is shaped. The part above it, over there, that's not inbound, so players hiding up there isn't as big of a problem. Then we have this section. The intended way is to go through here, and I generally like this. You can obviously brake, however, you can also do that, and that's pretty interesting. And I think that Storm Drain as a map is both very basic and very simple for new players, but has a lot of skill expression. My big problem, this wall needs to be extended outward. You can keep the little bit of a ramp on it, but if the wall is extended out to here, then players can't easily skip this section anymore. Because right now, every single player would just do this, use a second boost. If you're on Vector, that second boost would send you over to here. All of this is inbounds because of the tunnel below. And you can very easily just drive along this and get over it. There's the wall right there. But on the inner way, on the intended route, when you're taking this section, I'll probably show via drone footage, there's a lot of these catwalks, and the catwalks serve as a really great way to stop flying vectors and flying cruisers. I think the way that you balance the better bikes is through your map design, to discourage but not remove the ability to fly and the ability to wall ride by making it more risky. Taking the slower route is a lot safer because if you're hitting any of these beams at enough speed, you're just crashing and dying. Meanwhile, all of these lower spots, if you rush at them, you're getting popped up. You're not actually crashing. The lower spots encourage precision for something like a cruiser or blunt nose. Meanwhile, the catwalks up there make it a lot better for a vector who wouldn't be wanting to take these precise tunnels. I really like the inclusion of weapons above. You can pick up a weapon, maybe a boost stack, by slowing down and getting on top, or you can speed through underneath. It's about making those little choices. If this was like a revolver or a Kalashnikov and I had the money, I'm on a blunt nose right now, I wouldn't be able to catch up to a vector. But snagging a revolver, bang bang, now I'm winning. Generally, this entire section is kind of the same in that regard. Then you have this. I like this big thing. This stops a lot of confident players along with the catwalks. It makes it a lot more difficult for confident vector players and confident cruisers that are boosting off of this massive ramp to be able to actually thread the needle that they need to. Along with, over here, these two catwalks. Getting to the first big arena, this is one of the weaker spots in the map, I think. Generally just because of how it's dividing players into 3 sections. You have the main middle pit, you have the upper area, and then you have down here. And obviously down here is going to be removed once the water comes in, and I'll talk a lot about how the water impacts the game. I think water is one of the best mechanics in the entire game, and I love how airframes interact with it. With these catwalks up here, where you have your pretty much your only health pickups, your only metal, this is once again good level design of preventing players from getting into the air very easily. Vectors and blunt noses, cruisers, hoppers, any bike can do it. Can get up here and can smack people from below. These catwalks provide a little bit of cover along with the lower area. Trying to hit someone with a flying sign, like I like to do, becomes a lot more difficult when players are hiding underneath stuff. So yeah, keeping the wall ride. This is a well-designed arena. My only complaint is that it spreads players out a little too thin. It can be hard to find players in shorter lobbies, but I think that's fine. I don't think that that's something that needs to be changed. This tunnel definitely needs to be changed, though. And I think I have a very simple solution. Make it as wide as the tunnels over there. I'll show some drone footage. But give players the opportunity to actually dodge an EMP or a Molotov, and then spit them out all in one great section, rather than a bunch of tiny little split paths. I think that'd work really well, and I don't think you'd have the problem of players like getting up to that area, especially because there's no reason to. If you're worried about like a skip of getting into the arena early, doesn't matter when the finish line is right there. There's no reason to skip the finish line. And it's an airframe arena, so you don't even need to worry about people getting their bikes in. Going this section in reverse, it's more of the same. This is just a solid section. These boost packs become a little worse on the way back, because now you can get the one in the tunnel easier. You don't have to turn around for it. If a vector is speeding ahead, they're getting 4 boosts. They're going into the tunnel, turning around, getting this one, and then rushing ahead. Vector's going to be hitting this ramp right here, getting that big straight line. The catwalks are in a good spot. I've crashed there a couple times, but generally, this boost should probably be somewhere like here, where this one spawns. That way you can get it on the way forward, but you have a harder time getting it on the way back, unless you want to go out of your way to climb up this massive thing. And if you're doing that, and grabbing it here, you're at a weird angle to get the one inside. You could probably do it. This trash pile, kind of fun. It's very easy to get up here, once again, with this trash pile. That's probably not intentional at all, just as far as I know. But I like it, because if you're doing this, you're skipping the boost packs, or you're driving in reverse. There's a lot of time for other players to pass you, kick you, hit you, spit in your eye, that kind of thing. Getting up here, my thought process for up here. make it the slopes. Make it the slopes that are over there. I mentioned that before. It's a lot harder to drive along a 45-degree angle on the side with your airframe. It's spitting you back into the pit below. Maybe lower the walls to actually have like just a tiny bit, probably about where that line is, in order to encourage players to actually look up and see who's above them. But generally you're just spitting players back in, because driving up here for a long period of time isn't optimal, because at that 45-degree angle you have to constantly make adjustments in order to keep the height, and that's messing up your speed. You can also get up very easily from this one, and I think this is a little less bad even if you didn't have the invisible walls, because I'll probably show it in drone footage just so it's easier. This wall here prevents you from getting into the quick fight, and I think that that's good design of putting things up top to discourage it. Going through this section, you're generally blasting through at high speeds. The fact that this turn is here means you can't see if there's a quick fight until it's too late, so you have a lot of players using their resources, taking that 50-50 and trying to get ahead. A Vector using all of their boost on this section is going to be relatively fucked for the next one, and I think that's a good thing, to encourage those split-second decision making and that quick thinking. This crate, fun. This lower tunnel, useless. No player would ever go down here. People generally aren't going to need repairs, because if you're trash boosting here in order to get to the finish line quickly, you're not using the repairs anyway. It becomes a lot worse once the rain comes in. This quick fight, once again, I feel like it iterates well on the first quick fight. You still have the half pipe kind of walls, except now they're just situated in the middle, with this trash pile and that slope. Your weapon spawns tend to be fine. I think that there should maybe be a little more. I often find myself struggling for a weapon and just sitting up here on these spots. There's plenty of money, but just nothing really to do when that's body armor. You have 2 blasters, you know. Generally, I like this arena. This next section, really good. If the quick fight isn't here, then people are going to be blasting through at high speeds, and that's very easy. It's very easy for them to fuck up on any of these tight, precise spots, even more so when the rain comes in. This is one of the best placed boosts in the entire map. Getting this requires the little bit of mini challenge of potentially hitting these street lights. That's happened quite a bit to me on Vector. Meanwhile, Cruiser, something that's going to be able to tank that, would much rather stick to the ground and drive through these, iterating on the previous section by having half of them blocked off. Once the trash pile comes in, you also have this entire section with ramps to wall ride. However, the wall riding becomes risky when you are immediately hitting these trees. I actually very narrowly clipped through them there, but it can be very dangerous, and I have died a couple times to that. This tends to be the biggest problem area on the map, I think. They generally have nothing up there, and it's all out of bounds, but you can very easily get up there via this. And now, the actual way to drive this is to go along here, but the fact that you can skip this entire section, and it seems mostly intentional, feels weird for what we know of Video Cult and how they're blocking off a lot of spots up here. When you're going along this part, if you're not hitting that, because I normally don't, you can also very easily get up like this. These big things over here, if you're on Vector, you can very easily hit these if you take the jump a little too high. And I think that that's great. I think that it encourages you to slow down a little bit to make sure that you're hitting your jump properly. This little area down here, if you're not skipping it, tends to be pretty bad. Kind of the worst part of the map, just in terms of if you're on Blunt Nose, you can kind of handle it, but if you're on Cruiser, if you're on Vector, you're going to be boosting a lot into walls there. I was hoping that I'd be able to clear it with this slight tiny ramp. But generally, I think probably put some kind of obstacle up on this pipe so that when players are getting to this last arena, they actually have something to worry about. Then, this arena, I accidentally started the race early. This is a really well-made arena. It's mostly open, meaning that guns are going to be very strong, but you still have these boxes in the middle that can potentially act as cover, and you have this lower section to avoid aerial attacks. And I think this lower section is really well placed, because the sides have some cover. Closer to the exit is less cover, but you can still duck below if you know that someone is launching themselves up on the half pipe, and then launching Molotovs or frag grenades or something. It's very easy to get cover here. Now that the rain has come in, I'm probably going to switch mostly to drone footage. The rain typically has the same effect across the entire map. It's making the maps more open, giving less opportunity for cover, and making it more combat focused. You don't see it that much on this first section, but once you get over to here, you can very quickly see all of this cover is just replaced with a straight line. Blunt Nose and Cruiser do very well here. Once again, this section still has problems. This is no longer a death pit. You can still die if you go off to the sides, which is funny. But generally, the first part acts as a good introduction to the rain by not making it very impactful to how it actually, you know, changes the map. Then right at the end we have these waterfalls. The waterfalls will slow your airframe down if you're coming at them with too much speed. I think that it's a great way to introduce players to the concept of the waterfalls. I just wish that they were used a little more, since generally you're getting slowed down after the finish line on the quick fight. It's only going to really matter if the big arena's here. This arena isn't impacted by the water at all. This section though, all of that talk about cover and weaving through basically becomes non-existent. This is a cruiser's heaven, and you can hit this ramp at a much softer angle now, and you can speed forward. Avoiding the waterfalls becomes an issue here, which is, again, good, because if you're speeding forward, you have to worry about this stuff. This last part of the track, I didn't mention it earlier. I don't really know what the purpose of this is. It doesn't really matter. The ending is right here. This arena, once again, it's more of the same. You lose out on the lower section, and now you have less opportunity to duck under cover just because the cover is closer. It's like, if you're closer to the cover, there's more angles that people can hit you at compared to if you're further away. People that are launching themselves upward are going to have an easier time doing so on walls like this instead, and with the ground being so close, they're going to more easily line up shots that way. I think that this is a really good change. The only complaint is this waterfall should not extend to the bottom here. I think that that's kind of bad, and is the reason why this sort of thing happens. Going on the reverse, it's again more of the same. The section is just really well designed both ways. I think if you were to implement that big pipe change, you'd include a waterfall down the middle in order to split players up a little bit, just because having more waterfalls means more game design, like more fun, more interactions, more choice, more game design. This section doesn't really get changed at all, except for this tunnel now becoming, it becomes this. This fight doesn't change at all, but it's already a really good arena. Doesn't need to. This last section, I think, is where the rain really gets to shine. You already had those tighter hoops, like the little areas underneath that you need to thread. Now it becomes an actual issue. For something like Cruiser, you have to jump right before getting to the point where you have to thread that needle, just because your jump sends you down just a little bit, showing here. This section, once again, it's just more open, and then this last part doesn't really change. Generally, really well-made map. This game's best, I think. I think Chasm also is a really strong contender for the best map. That's because both Storm Drain and Chasm generally just have problems with how they place their boosts. Meanwhile, something like Quarry has more issues in terms of its actual arenas and in terms of the way that its races are spaced out. You have races that are a little too long and races that are a little too short. So yeah, that was the first little episode of analyzing Airframe. I'm really not taking this to be too big of a deal. I'm just ranting about the maps. Yeah, bye.